Mr. Peter.
Hey, welcome everybody to Spin Legal this evening. It is October the 21st. What have you done to the year, Justin?
What have we done to the year? A lot, certainly from your perspective.
Yeah. Okay, so it's October 21st, 2025. This is episode 88 with Angela and myself. And as we're doing, because we've got Justin here, we're doing an Indigenous skit today. No, not skit, wrong word. An Indigenous law segment today. And Justin is going to tell us all about the Indigenous political systems.
Yes, thank you, Peter. And I just want to explain to the audience and to both you and... Sorry?
Yeah, it's okay. Keep going.
Yeah, I just want to explain to the both of you and to the audience. I realize this is a legally themed podcast. However, politics is heavily, well, I shouldn't say heavily, it does impact on laws of all kind, including Indigenous. So it's important to understand not only the politics of the situation, but even the history as well.
Yeah.
When you're talking about anybody's rights, that's when politics intervenes.
Yes, well, there has been intervention in the law, and I think the viewers need to understand that. Now, before I begin, I will
hang on a minute. Let's just do our traditional advertising.
Oh, sorry.
Just to let you know that you can contact Invictus Legal at 905-688-5598. Angela is her email is Angela@WeAreInvictus, and my email is Peter@WeAreInvictus. And while we're here, Justin's email is Justin@WeAreInvictus.legal. And you can visit the website weareinvictus.legal. There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you, Peter.
And moving on.
Okay, moving on. Again, like I've done in the first two episodes, I want to stress to the viewership, there is a difference between Indigenous and Aboriginal law. They cannot be interchanged. Indigenous law is evolved from the Indigenous community, whereas Aboriginal law comes from the federal, provincial, and the municipal government. So you have to be aware of the differences. I mean, there's no right or wrong. It's just the way it is. So it's okay.
Well, there's a few things here. You're talking about Indigenous political systems, and that's quite a leap for many people because, for many people, it's kind of we don't even like our own political system, let alone an odd one that we don't know nothing about. If you know what I mean.
Exactly.
I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm just saying we know not. There's many people like myself that know nothing about how Indigenous law works.
No, exactly. I mean, the vast majority of Canadians, and again, no disrespect to them, but they are ignorant of it, and they think, okay, there's one system like that just engulfs all the bands and all the Indigenous, and know that they cannot be further from the truth. There are 4 major bands in Canada. The first one is the Mohawk, and this one was based on the Great Law of Peace, also known as the Great Law of the Longhouses. And it's believe it or not, it's one of the world's oldest democracies. It's respected to the point where the founding fathers in the United States poached certain articles and other philosophies from that into the United States Constitution. It's very respected, and this political system with the Mohawk, it brings balance to law, society, and nature. And it's one, and the two-row wampum which we discussed in earlier episodes, because there are wampums which are used to communicate many things, both law, business, diplomacy, and other cultural significance in the indigenous community, especially the Mohawks. They stress peaceful coexistence and the mutual respect among the indigenous and the settler nations.
Can we just talk about a couple of terms here? I've heard of the name Mohawk. I always assumed it to have been an indigenous name, and now we have this new name, which is Kanayan Kahaka.
Well, to the best of my knowledge, and don't take this as gospel, I think that was always the name for it. I think Mohawk is an anglicization of it. But again, I don't treat it as gospel. I mean, I've done a lot of research, but again, I'm not a PhD in anthropology, and I'm certainly not at that level as far as being an expert on the indigenous community.
So the ones you've given us today are the ones that are the main ones in Canada, yes?
There are 4, yes.
Not the United States, just to be clear.
No, they have their own bans. They've had their own issues. They've had their own problems. And maybe down the road, we can discuss that if you're interested in talking about the United States indigenous and their own laws. It's quite fascinating, but for now, we're just going to leave it at the 4 episodes.
Keep it Canadian. Okay, so tell us about Kanayan Kahaka. Okay.
Their band, they focus on structured leadership and social roles. It's non-democratic, and the chiefs have derived their power from hereditary and wealth distribution, and through cultural ceremonies as well. Events like the potlatch. And in modern times, the Council of the Haida, or help me out, Peter.
Sorry?
Just the pronunciation.
Kanayan Kahaka.
Thank you.
Best as I can do.
They have established their own constitution, affirming sovereignty, rights to land, and hereditary and government principles. And I do want to point out, I had forgotten earlier, the governance of the Mohawk, it follows a matrilineal of clan systems, specifically the bear, the turtle, and the wolf clans. But that could turn into a separate episode in itself. But I respect your time, and I don't want to. This could go for 3 hours.
And they also talk about the Haudenosaunee Confederacy as part and parcel of these people. Yes.
Yes,
as I understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Are they the local tribes around this area?
I can't speak to that honestly, but they've got the Indian bands exist pretty much all over Canada. There are specific ones like, for example, the Inuit are located in northern Ontario, specifically Nunavut and the Northwest Territories. You would find Haida and maybe the Cree more in the provinces. I can't really identify where they are geographically, because this is again to the viewership. I don't want to offend them by trying to shoot off, shoot from the lip about things. I don't have an in detailed PhD knowledge, and this is a law focused indigenous program.
So one of the things I noticed about the Kanayan Kahaka is that they have this great law of peace.
Great law of peace. Well, that's Mohawk, actually.
Okay.
That is that is the Constitution that was written by the Mohawks, and as I explained earlier, it's one of the oldest constitutions in North America.
How long does that date back?
I don't believe back to the 1600s. I don't have the exact year on me, but it is. It's an incredible document. I managed to read some of it, and again, like I said, the founding fathers of the United States not only respected it, well, not all of them, but they used elements of it to form the United States Constitution, and I think that is that's amazing that they had such influence on the founding of the United States government and on their legal system.
Or they're holding on over their graves that they find out what's going on now with the states.
Well, yes. I mean, that is an issue on both sides of the borders. And it's also become an issue that the medals that were awarded at the Battle of Wounded Knee to the American soldiers were revoked posthumously because under President Biden at the time, he more or less regarded them as war criminals. And what's more disturbing is since President Trump has resumed the presidency, he has reinstated them. So, I mean, it is highly controversial, and I find this kind of interesting in that this has been done very shortly after the Truth and Reconciliation Committee in Canada over abuse of Indian children in these residence schools. So it's very controversial, but then again, we're going to discuss that in episode 4.
Okay. All right. So moving on to the next. Hayada?
No, we've done Hayada.
Do we?
Yep, we did. We did Mohawk. We've done Hayada. I mean, come on, Peter.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Cree is the next one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the Cree, they have a system. They've been organized into small mobile bands, and they're governed by egalitarian principles, and they actually have respect for individual autonomy. And the organization of their political system is represented by the Grand Council of the Crees, and it asserts the right of determination, self-determination, and resource management, especially across Quebec and James Bay.
Okay.
Yeah. And the final one, unless you had any questions, Peter.
I don't have any, no.
Okay, the final one is the Inuit that are located mostly in Nunavut. Now, they govern through consensus and cooperation. That the leadership is chosen by skills or wisdom. That they believe in peaceful coexistence and a balance of nature. And the modern Inuit governance included, which is very interesting, self-government and the land claims, such as the the Nunavut government in Labrador, in which they had earned the right through treaty over jurisdiction over education, health, and culture across approximately 1,000 kilometers of a territory, and that is amazing that this could be done in modern day. And that was I thought was a very significant moment, just short of the creation of the Nunavut territory, which again that was very significant as well.
They've got to be the most widespread of people because, as you said, they go from the Nunavut territory to out through to where was it? No. You were talking about them being in the east as well.
The east, no, they are not in the east.
And you said Labrador, right?
Well, yes, they are, but no, I mean, well, they are there, but it's more in the northern part of, I would say, Newfoundland.
Yeah.
They're not.
Yeah, but again, there's a lot.
They're not east in terms of, going into the southern regions of the province, if that makes sense.
Yeah. What I'm saying, there's a lot of difference. There's a lot of distance between Nunavut and northern parts of Labrador and New Brunswick.
Not really, but again, like I say, it's like I said earlier, it's not geographic specific. These
okay.
It's like a majority of the Inuit, I would say, are in Nunavut in the Northwest Territory.
Okay.
There are others that are out there. It's in other areas, like you said, in Newfoundland and stuff. But like they're not concentrated into one geographic area.
Okay. So moving on, the influence of their influence upon the Canadian political system.
Well, yes. Well, under the Indian Act of 1876, which is an Aboriginal law imposed, it completely not only it didn't only undermine it, it decimated the governance and defined Indian status in patriarchal terms, and it forced assimilation through enfranchisement policies, and it stripped status from those integrating into Canadian society. So, for example, if you wanted to move off the reserve, fine, but you no longer have any status, and you forfeit it once you go and gain Canadian citizenship, which I think is you frankly wrong.
Yeah.
I don't see why you cannot have both. I mean, you're basically being forced at the time, if you move off the reserve, to give up your culture, not only socially but legally as well, and that was a problem. And there were also policy conflicts as well. Now, what happened was it was reaching a point in 1969. Pierre Trudeau, then Prime Minister, and Jean Chrétien, another former Prime Minister who became Minister of Indian and Northern Affairs, they wanted to abolish Indian status altogether and federal obligations to the Indigenous. And what had happened was there was, as a counter proposal, the Red Paper. Now, this was conceived by Harold Cardinal, who was Indigenous, and he set up the, well, I shouldn't say set up, but he was a member of the Indian Indigenous Association of Alberta, and they just were totally opposed to this assimilationist agenda, and they asserted the treaty rights of the Indigenous that were set up between Britain and later Canada, and the bands or the nations of the Indigenous community. And it was a pivotal moment in terms of relations between both the Indigenous and the Anglophone and the Francophone communities that make up Canada.
I find that disturbing that in fact a person can't be. So you either live on the reserve or you live in the Western society, if you like. You can't live on both.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you
Right?
recognize both because one of the problems that bothered me is you were Indigenous woman and you went up and married a non-Indigenous man, you lose your status. But a man who's Indigenous, he can go off and marry a non-Indigenous woman, but he doesn't lose his status.
Well, no, you're absolutely right, Angela. It is a very patriarchal move on the part of the government, and we're going to get to that later in this interview. So it's don't skip it too much.
Also, it occurs to me that obviously cities are where traditionally there's a lot of employment opportunities, and on the reserves, there's often been a lot of complaints about there not being employment opportunities.
Yes, and we're going to get to the how the Indigenous have been dealt with in urban areas later in this
Okay.
episode. And what resulted was the era of what they call red power and activism. Now, this was inspired by the Indian movement, and it surged during the 1970s. And the Natives People Caravan and the Indian Child Caravan, they were able to resist what they considered as colonial policy, and the latter led to the and again, help me, Peter, if I can't pronounce this, the Spalmachine.
Spalumching.
Thank you. Indian Band Bylaw number 3, 1980. And this was the first recognition of band control over child welfare. And this was a huge landmark in terms of Indigenous law or Aboriginal law, however you want to take it.
And just to say that when we're saying words like Spalumcheen or any of the other words that we spell, but that we pronounce, if we do say it wrongly, don't sue us.
Exactly. No, I mean, I've done a lot of research, and I mean no disrespect or ignorance towards the members of the Indigenous community. And if I have, I truly and sincerely apologize.
And we just do the best we can to actually.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I mean, I've done my best to do my research and due diligence on this topic because, in my journey on this, I have learned so much in terms not only of law, but Indigenous law, but history, the governance system, and the culture. Unfortunately, I just didn't learn too much about pronunciation of Indigenous language in general.
And not everybody is blessed with pronunciation, with good pronunciation. Not to say that you do a bad job, but when it comes to strange words, not everybody adapts.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. And again, I hope the Indigenous community will excuse my ignorance in that regard.
Yeah. But you were talking about the Spalumcheen Indian Band Bylaw, I think 3 of 1980.
Yes, that was well. Again, it was recognition of band control over child welfare, and it was huge. It was a major recognition, and I think that impacted very directly, for the better in terms of Indigenous law.
Took many years for them to translate that into actual child welfare interests, even in the Canadian community, where there was an issue with Indigenous child. They want to place them into an Indigenous household if they can't be in their own household.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so I mean, this was a huge victory for the Indigenous community in Canada, and in terms of formal politics or political entities and leadership, Eventually, four organizations, the National Indian Brotherhood, the Inuit Tapper Canada, thank you, and the Native Council of Canada evolved. And leaders, Harry Daniels, for example, Elmer Ghostkeeper, they advanced the Métis rights, which is kind of a separate issue unto their own, and it resulted constitutionally in the Indian, Inuit, and Métis peoples section under Section 35. And if you'll just give me a second, this was put into effect in 1982 when Canada finally got its own constitution.
It's in the Charter of Rights.
Yes. Section 35.1. The existing Aboriginal and treaty rights of the Aboriginal peoples of Canada are hereby recognized and affirmed. And Section 35, subsection 2, in this act, Aboriginal peoples of Canada, including Indian, Inuit, and Métis peoples of Canada. So basically, it was widespread. They didn't, just limit it to certain sections of bands or whatnot, because there has been, even like from my research, and correct me if I'm wrong, there have been conflicts between other bands, even the Métis. Some Indigenous don't even regard them as legitimate Indigenous individuals.
Yeah, that actually is. The Métis seem to be in a bit of a divide, because many Indigenous people don't recognize them as Indigenous. But
exactly, yeah, it's because there was a mix of Métis and French or Francophone background. And that dates back as far as in Saskatchewan, and where there's a very heavy community of French Métis. And of course, Louis Riel, who was eventually executed as a traitor, was finally recognized, I think, a year or two ago as the first premier of Saskatchewan. So times do change, and there you go.
Okay. But of course, one of the things that seems to mean is that we have a differentiation between Indigenous law or how Indigenous laws are made, and how Western laws are made.
Well, yes, there is a difference, and I've explained this in the two previous episodes. Indigenous law, it comes from many factors. They use a consensus style method of determining laws. They also include oral tradition and even folklore, and using it. And of course, in the Mohawk tradition, they also, I would imagine, they use the Great Peace Constitution.
And you see, as a person who comes from the United Kingdom, I understand how to me, common law and the law of the land that we often see here, applied in the courts in Canada, would be the tradition that dates back at least 1,000 years in Britain.
Well, it is, but I do remind you, in all fairness, Code Civil is also respected in Canada in deference to
I was going to say, but
the French nation, and they also what they've done, like normally you get, and correct me if I'm wrong, Peter and Angela, normally is one justice from every province except Quebec. They need 3 justices as a subcommittee, because they have to focus specifically on civil law. Otherwise, you would just have one judge, which would be, not fair. And I again would state, like I stated in a previous episode, after speaking with a friend of mine who has had dealings with the Indigenous community, and I thought this was an interesting point. It's probably not going to happen in our lifetimes, but the time may come where Indigenous law may evolve to the point where either an act of parliament or maybe even an amendment to the Constitution is going to happen where on the Supreme Court there'll have to be 3 justices who are versed in Indigenous law.
And that would actually change quite a bit of the shape of the Supreme Court.
Well, it would, and again, like I said in a previous episode, if they were to amend the Constitution, like I know, like there was a lot of controversy during the Meech Lake and the Charlottetown Accords, stating basically why should Quebec get unique and distinct status?
Yeah, when every other province
over all the other provinces. So what I have, and I agreed with that initially in my youth. I mean, I'm a constitutional geek. I've been studying this since age 16, but as I've grown and evolved now at age 52, I have grown. I have modified my beliefs and said, okay, if they want to open up a unique and distinct society again, if it were up to me, I would say, okay, there are several unique and distinct societies that have to be recognized. One, and in this order, the Indigenous, the Francophone nation, and I'm not saying Quebec, the Francophone nation, because there have been Francophones all over Canada who have made unique and distinct contributions to this country. And third would be the Anglophones. And by Anglophones, I mean anyone who identifies as someone whose English is their first language. And as far as the provinces are concerned, we would use the Bill van der Zalm model of, okay, you can, every province is unique. You write up why you think they're unique. We'll incorporate into the Constitution. I mean, that's just my opinion. Take it or leave it. So it's
But again, Justin, there are a lot of new Canadians who've come in the last 20 years who are neither Francophone nor Anglophone. They bring their own unique languages.
They do, and I'm not meaning to sound racist, but it would be like if I moved, say, to Norway or Thailand. You're playing. You have to play by their rules, and learn their language.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to come off as a bigot or anything, but in Canada, it's English and French are the official languages, and if you're not prepared to learn them, or if you just don't have a good enough understanding of it, what can I say? It's and even some of the Indigenous languages, for that matter.
Well, that's the interesting thing is, of course, that we have 2 official languages, English and French, and the Indigenous languages are not part of our official language block.
It is. It very much is. And my suggestion would be, okay, if this is going to be taken down the road, and it reminds me, before I go ahead, there was one Liberal MP, like many years ago. He went out of his way to learn one of the Indigenous languages. I can't remember what, and he was non-Indigenous. He just felt he was obligated as a Canadian to embrace the 3 major cultures in Canada, and good for him. But my solution would be, in India, believe it or not, they have 17 official languages. However, English in their constitution is retained as an associate language, in that it's used in universities. It's used privately in corporation and diplomatic settings. In the Indian Parliament, anyone can get up and speak what their native tongue is, but it's simultaneously translated into English. When the Prime Minister has to address the nation, it is done in English, and it's reached the point now where if you want to get a job anywhere in India, you better speak English or you're dead. And
in fact, actually, in India, I count it as there's 1.3 billion people live in India, but something in my research, about 75 million of them speak English.
Yes, they do, and in some cases, in some of the provinces, they will teach English first, and then their local dialect you later on, and it's kind of ironic because when the British imposed English as the official language of Britain, they were doing it to colonize and break it apart. But no, it unified everyone because all the communities, including Hindu, Muslim, whatever, they were able to communicate with each other for the first time, and it was a unifying factor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, moving on to self-governance and self-determination.
Sorry for my barking session there, but okay. Now, it's interesting because Indigenous governance and especially self-governance, and they have agreements that allow Indian nations to create laws, manage resources, and deliver social programs to the federal government's credit. But self-determination, and this is where it comes into international law, it has been backed by the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, and upholds the Indigenous' rights to freedom to freely determine political status and to pursue development independently. And I'm not talking just about the Canadian Indigenous. We're talking about the Aborigines in Australia, the Maori in New Zealand, and there are countless others. So, I mean, this has had a huge impact on not only Canadian law, but on other nations that have Indigenous communities.
Yeah. And it also, ironically, impacts Indigenous communities in places like South America.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I mean, there are so many. And this was a major step.
It's a major undertaking to go through.
It was indeed, yeah. It's and there was also an Aboriginal nation model, and the model specifically addresses control over lands and resources, and the development of constitutions, Indigenous constitutions amongst the four bands that reflect traditional values and traditional autonomy, and they're rooted in community principles. Now, the criteria include ancestry, residence, and self-identification, and urban extensions ensure service delivery for officer members, and that has been a bone of contention because for years it was how are you going to treat or address the Indigenous who have opted to move into urban centers, and that has been a bone of contention in there. And what they had to do was develop a service industry for them in terms of recognition. I mean, that was a bit of a problem. Whether it is, I truthfully can't speak to that, but it's an evolving political system. It's an evolving society and it's an evolving legal culture.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Is that the end of it?
Unless you have any other questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always interesting because I was raised and I've had experience in working with urban Indigenous. There's about 70% of people of Native Aboriginal backgrounds of living in off reserve.
It is, and that's why I stated in a previous episode it was important when the Indigenous were finally granted full citizenship, and they can move off the reserve, they could vote, and they could retain their Indigenous status.
Because one of the things I did like is that a lot of the stuff when they're living, say, in Toronto, there's a lot of organizations that specifically work with the Indigenous off reserve.
Yes, there are. Not in my research, not only in Toronto, but Halifax, Vancouver, Calgary,
Some here too.
Regina as well. I mean, it's just and their rights have to be addressed as well. At least as I see it from an outsider's perspective.
Well, actually, in some of the thing is about it is that we. Like I've not been to a reservation except in and out, so to speak. I don't know what reservation life is like, but I do know that there are many differences between reservation life and what what the life is like in cities.
There is. When I was 14, we went on a class trip actually to a reservation. And they cleared up a lot of misperceptions that all of us had. For example, if someone does a minor offense or maybe a summary offense that's just short of maybe murder or rape or terrorism, they would use a sentencing circle, which was a consensus-based model of how they would determine it. Judgment. And I remember the guide telling me, they get government funding for housing. So anyone who is living in squalor, that's their own choice. And, and I asked, and I remember asking, how they would deal with someone who got in trouble there. And the guy just, said, we take him around and shoot him in the back. But no, it really opened my eyes back then. And the only other time I visited was up in Hamilton, and it was for selfish reasons. I had to buy a laptop. It was tax-free, but okay, I'll admit it. I do it tax-free.
So Mr. Taxman's going to come after you now after 20 years of your old reservation laptop.
Exhibit 1, episode of Spin Legal. Number 88.
No. I mean, when I was 14, I was glad to get that experience, just to travel around and see what it was. And they actually cleared up a lot of misperceptions that we had as kids. And I think that was important, especially now that I'm an adult and I realize it's not as cut and dry as a lot of people think it is.
Like they have they have the cigarettes and different things on the reservations you can buy, and you can buy.
They do. I bought my laptop on one of them, and hey, there was no problem. It's like, hey, okay, sure, no problem.
We lived with somebody around there. It was around the Brantford area, one of the reservations there. He just went in and he got some smokes from the smoke shack. And he just went in there, then he went out and got gas, and it was all cheaper.
And that's because they don't have tax involved.
Yeah.
No, they don't. They have tax exempt status. They also have dual citizenship rights because of their Indigenous nature. Mm-hmm. Some of the tribes or bands, I should say, they even have their own passports.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, that was one of the things I was going to say about earlier, because many of the people, many of the First Nation people actually have they have paperwork that allows them to go across the border into the US without what we would consider a passport.
Well, that's it. Well, they consider themselves nations. So, they are recognized by both countries through treaties.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anything else?
Not that I can think of, unless you want to use me as a human pinata for over more.
Okay,
I'm very glad to do this episode, and I'm looking forward to the fourth and final one.
I will do so now. Okay. No. Okay.
Thank you for having me.
The fourth and final one will be about the topics on the fourth and final of these.
Oh, sorry.
What will it be about?
This will be about what was happening in the Indigenous residential schools and the abuse that the children suffered, what has been done legally in Canada and to a certain extent the United States, and the reaction of both the Canadian government and also tangentially with the Roman Catholic Church and the Anglican Church as well, because they share some culpability as well.
And the lawsuits taking place.
Yes, there are, and there you go. So that'll be the final one, and I'll disappear, and you won't have to listen to my rantings and ravings and barking sessions anymore.
Yeah, as if we'll get rid of you from this show.
Well, I've already taken up 3 episodes of your time, and I'm sure there are other guests that are equally.
We're going to be having a few guests.
Between there, we discuss pregnancy in the workplace.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, people's rights when they get pregnant in the workplace.
Okay.
All right, and we'll get on to other topics after that. So we'll see you again next week.
Topics. It's always topics. We ask our readers or listeners. Maybe they can write us if they have an idea. They can write us and give us topic ideas. We're
okay.
Well, Angela, Peter, thank you for having me.
No problem.
All right. So if you need to contact Invictus Legal LLP, you can do so on 905-688-5598. Email Angela via Angela We Are Invictus, or myself via Peter at weareinvictus.legal. And our website is weareinvictus.legal. And Angela.
And what we heard today on Spin Legal, whether it's this show or any others in this series, is not legal advice. If you need legal advice, please contact a paralegal or a lawyer. We'd love to see you come here or knock on our door, but as I said, just talk to a paralegal or a lawyer. They would give you something specifically tailored to your needs. Thank you.
Yeah, and I will just add, finally, I am a paralegal. However, I am still learning and I'm still evolving as being more knowledgeable, and even being an expert in Indigenous law. That being said, don't come to me at this point in time.
Come to Justin if you've got an Indigenous legal problem. He will solve it for you.
Yeah, no, I'm not the one to come to. Not at this point in time. Maybe 3 to 5 years, but
the Assembly of First Nations is listening.
I think you. Here, Angela, we're going to give him a case in 3 to 5 weeks, aren't we?
Bad idea. Bad idea. I mean, I'm a bit of, at best, a novice, but still, I mean, there are other lawyers and paralegals who would be a lot.
But we have to learn by fire, Justin.
It's true.
Peter, how he learned. Ask Peter how he learned how to do his cases.
Yeah, I told her to stop giving me cases, otherwise I'm going on strike, you see.
Okay. But again, thank you for having me.
No problem. You have a